I read the big difference between men and women is that men don't ask questions, whether in a social setting, on a date, or whatever it is. And the women, I can see you.
All the women in the room are nodding and smiling.
Smiling in recognition of all of this. The men do not, apparently, Melvin, this was news to me, by the way. Men don't ask questions. Men are, the thing that defines us is that we are just entirely incurious about other human beings. I mean, do you recognize that in yourself? I now realize that I'm like that. I mean, I'm going to ask you guys. Women, can I ask the women in the audience, first of all? So men don't ask questions. Men are incurious. Sit there, letting you do the work. And you're nodding there, madam, in the chair. Ladies, do you recognize that? Is that true? Hands up. That is pretty much every woman in the room. And Rosie, does that make sense to you?
Well, do you know what? There is definitely cases where I've gone on dates in the past and you come back and you go, it was great, he asked me questions.
Oh my goodness.
You'll say, what a guy.
Oh, but Rosie, so this is the thing. So I have to let you all into a secret. So when we were reading this story this morning, John was just becoming increasingly distressed because as we progress through the story and you hear, well, men go on dates and they don't ask anything, and John's going, well, I never ask. No, I never ask anything. And
I don't go on dates.
And then I said, well, no, you don't go on dates anymore, but I don't ask anything. And then I said, well, men often in social situations, if it's a bit awkward and there's a silence, most men are just prepared to sit in the silence, whereas women will try and do something to alleviate it because it's quite awkward. We might ask you a question or we might offer you a cup of tea or say, oh, I'm going to do this, that, and the other. And John said, no, I just sit in the silence. And he went, God, how have I got to this age and realised this? Yeah. And nobody's told me. And actually, I think it's true.
Which is obviously the other defining characteristic of men and males is we are entirely unself-aware. I'm not even trying to make you laugh, Rosie. These things have been revelations to me this morning. I'm going to remember that for the rest of my life. I mean, you don't look as if you're completely on the same page as me.
I don't think I'm on the same page.
Really, you're more sensitive and caring.
You're a rare beast,
I don't think I'm
Melvin.
on the same page.
Right.
Actually.
I mean, guys,
I would.
Let's ask the guys here.
Yeah, I know. I think in the main, I definitely wouldn't consider myself to be incurious.
Incurious.
I definitely wouldn't consider myself. I don't think I could put this festival on if I wasn't interested in lots and lots and lots of things to present on stage.
I think the difference is it's one of those things where if you go on a date with somebody and you'll find, or I have found what happens is you tend to ask, okay, what do you do for a living? Oh, no, I do this. And then they don't say, what do you do? They just don't say anything. So then you say, oh, so, how long have you been in London, or what's your favourite place? And they said this. And then they don't say, how about you? It's not even that hard. You could just copy my questions.
Look at the faces out.
I know.
The absolute total recognition. Do we have a standing mic now?
Yeah, can we get a microphone out for the audience? That would be great. There's a gentleman in the front row who I would love to hear the thoughts of, because clearly he's got some.
And I'm not actually saying that as a gender, we are entirely, totally obtuse. I'm not saying we are, just planks of wood.
We are a little useless. I would agree that we're a little useless.
Well, that's another true observation. We are completely useless.
Yeah.
But that's not really what I'm saying. I said we're willing to let women in particular do the work.
No, I would 100% disagree with that from my point of view.
It would be awful if the conclusion of this was, it's just you.
No, God.
Well, no, I'll tell you what, on that moment, let's speak to this gentleman who I'm hoping is not going to leave John out on his own here. Go on.
No, I just wanted to ask about the choice of beer. There seems to be a very restricted choice of beer at the festival.
Yeah.
That's a question from a man.
Honestly, I was also going to ask about the loss of the poetry tent, because I do regret that it seems that we've got less intellectual stuff as the years have gone by.
Yes. Well, so you've actually answered all of that. You've made the point perfectly. First of all, you've demonstrated that you haven't heard a word we've said.
Let's hear from the gentleman behind you, and we'll come back to the poetry tent, because it's a good one.
I think it's true. If I take the dog for a 20-minute walk, it takes me 20 minutes. If my wife takes the dog for a 20-minute walk, it takes her 45.
Yeah.
And that's because she's talking to people on the way.
Talking to people as she goes around. She's patting dogs. She's asking questions of everybody else.
Yeah.
So one of the points in this story that was actually quite sad was about male friendships. And it was about the fact that lots of women would say that they had maybe, 5 or 6 good friends. And men often don't. you know, you might have your significant other or your partner, but you don't have friendships in the same way that women do, because you don't go out into the world and meet people and talk to people in the same way, which I don't know if that's kind of the experience of men here. John, do you have friendships?
Well, now you mention it.
Oh, God.
I mean, now you mention it. I mean, most of my social circle has been assembled and gathered and built by my other half, right? And I bet that's quite common to men as well.
Yeah.
There's a tiny handful of guys that I go to football with, and I see them at football, and then see them at the next football game. But when it comes to the daily business of sort of socializing, every man in the room is grinning from ear to ear, because you all see yourselves in this, don't you? Do you, gentlemen, who are in a relationship with a member of the opposite sex, do you leave it to that person to do the social heavy lifting? Again, show of
Yeah, give us
hand.
if that's a yes, though, that's a yes.
Look,
Yeah,
that's
there's quite a
just
lot of
about
them.
everybody, Kate.